Welcome back, everybody. So here's a session I'm particularly pleased made it onto the stage on a topic that is crucially important at the moment. Here to talk about the death of masculinity and its impact on creativity, please welcome Faith Popcorn. Faith is the best-selling author of The Popcorn Report, Clicking, Evolution, Dictionary of the Future, and the upcoming Popcorn Report 2025. She's founder and CEO of Faith Popcorn's Brain Reserve, the future-focused strategic marketing consultancy. Please put your hands together for Faith.
Hello, how are you? How hungover are you? Nothing worse than a rosé hangover, I always say. So I just wanted to, before I introduce my incredible panel, you are going to die. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our work, but we have been predicting the future for the Fortune 200, kicking and screaming for probably 4 decades. Our rate has been 95% correct. It's been incredible. We have this beautiful talent bank of 10,000 futurists, and anybody here feels talented, they can come to faithpopcorn.com and join it. As you probably know, I wrote the Popcorn Report. I wrote Evolution about the future of females. We wrote Dictionary of the Future, wrote all kinds of, but the most fascinating study, and it's just at its beginning, so you're really, here with me learning and thinking and futurizing, is a study about the future of masculinity. Because while everybody is focusing on women and women and women, Me Too, Time's Up, all of it, the pressure, the firing. Hello, Tiffany. One of my favorite brains. While everybody's focusing on this, I'm thinking, what about poor men? What's happening to men? Male suicides up 17%, 70%. Testosterone level down 17%. Y chromosome, bit falling apart. They're nervous. They're going, oh, is this going to be over soon? And we go, no, this is just beginning. So we've decided to plunge into the depths of masculinity, and I brought some brilliant masculinity experts here, which I will introduce in a second, and we're going to try to figure out, while everybody's thinking about women, what about men? Do we need them? Do we want them? Are they going to just explode? What's going to happen? And hopefully at the end of this conversation, not you, you're good, because you're a cool man. At the end of this conversation with our panelists, we will know a lot more, I believe, together, again, about the future of men. So I want to introduce to you my first panelist, a genius. His name is Michael Kimmel. He is the world's expert on masculinity. He wrote a book called Angry, and boy, are they ever angry. He could write the next book, Very Angry, White Men. That's why I say you're cool. He's started something called the Center Study of Men, and he is absolutely the world's most prominent, I would say, genius about masculinity. So Michael, will you come out? And he looks like a man. I say that with an edge because you'll see soon. The next panelist is a wonderful Amy Nelson. She's a CEO and founder of something called the Riveter. The Riveter is now she says men are welcome. I think she means it. But the Riveter is an all-female workspace, a brilliant workspace and startup space. And they have wonderful workshops, all kinds of things going on. She's growing much faster, by the way, than we work. And I am going to introduce you now to Amy Nelson. Yay, Amy! Oh, you look so normal. Hello. I like normal sometimes, but not now. Now, I'm going to introduce you to a very good friend, a brilliant mind, Their name is Violet Chachki, and she is a drag queen. She has distorted binary. Her charisma is amazing. She won RuPaul's Drag Race, $100,000, which she gave to me, of course, as her agent. No. And she is the most comfortable queen I have ever met. Violet Chachki. Violet? Isn't she beautiful? Gorgeous. You're beautiful. So I thought I'd let each of the panelists take, a minute and 10 seconds about yourself. And would you start?
Sure. Hi, my name's Michael Kimmel. I'm a sociologist, and I run the Center for the Study of Men and Masculinities at Stony Brook University outside of New York City. I've worked as an activist in this area for close to 40 years. And basically what I believe, and I think I take this for granted, we know we cannot fully empower women and girls without engaging boys and men. And so my job has been to figure out the ways to engage men to support gender equality. I work with organizations, countries, companies all over the world to try to create a group of male allies in companies who understand that gender equality is not a zero-sum game, but actually a win-win, and it's good for men as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And Amy Nelson.
Thank you. I'm the founder and CEO of the Riveter. We're building female-forward co-work and community spaces across the United States. We launched 1 year ago. We have 3 locations open in Seattle and Los Angeles, and 2 more coming online in the next 3 months. We look at the future of work and ask, what does it look like if we include women in the thought of the design? The leading co-work firms in the world are all run by men, and none of them have a single woman on their corporate board. So if co-working is the future of work, which we believe it is, it's critical that we include women in that question. At the same time, we do welcome all genders because we think it's really important for men to work in spaces where women are the majority voice.
So don't they call that he work? Just kidding.
You could. I am also the mother of 3 daughters, aged 3 and under. It is barely possible, but it can happen. And I'm a former litigator.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, good. So anyway, beautiful Violet, talk a little bit about yourself, as unused to that as you are.
I'm Violet Chachki. I am probably most well known for winning the 7th season of the reality competition series RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm a performer, I'm an artist. I work on stages all over the world, entertaining a lot of mixed audiences. I have a lot of queer kids that come to my shows. I have a lot of cis women that really look up to me for embodying femininity in a really positive way. I also identify as gender fluid, which to me just means that I can kind of float in between both genders as I see fit on a day-to-day kind of basis. So I kind of am at like the forefront of this like new gender movement, if you will.
So you say both genders, but Facebook's identifying gender in 75 ways. So I think you have time, a little ways to go.
Yeah, there's a gray area for sure.
Yeah. So, talking about old school masculinity, I'm going to start off, and you can think to yourself, how would you answer this? 3 words that capture masculinity, that capture it for you. So I'm going to say, Amy.
I would say pride, power, and Don Draper with a cigarette.
And Michael?
I have 3 images of this old masculinity. Don Draper, John Wayne, Willie Loman. So I'm thinking you sort of breadwinner, unemotional, quiet desperation.
Beautiful. And Violet?
I would say strength is a very traditional term used, confidence, and also dominance.
And I would say over, and over. So before we start, I want to show you something I find divine, and it is a beautiful little film. I just took a clip, but you should look it up. It's longer, from Harry's. And there are a few people out there, I think, divining, the new masculinity, and I think this is one actual advertiser who's doing it extremely well. Old
Are you going to? I already did this morning. No. Men know stuff.
Like what?
Like cars, sports, How to give a good handshake. A man has to be strong.
Strong how?
Like brave. A man shouldn't be afraid of anything.
Are you ever afraid?
Sometimes. I mean, there really aren't any rules, honestly. Can I ask you something? Have you seen my dad up there? The truth is, there's no one way to be a man.
Lovely, right?
Yeah.
So
And a little sad.
it's sad, but I think it is sad. I think that everybody's struggling with, what is it? What can it be? What should it be? And that's some of the things that we're going to get into. And especially for little boys, I think it's very hard. You're lucky you have 3 girls. I have 2 girls. You have a son.
I have a son.
It's very hard to tell boys right now, and they're struggling with what it means to grow up to be a man, because it's changing. There are so many signals that men are in decline, I'm sorry to say, but first of all, women are opening businesses at twice the rate of men. Women are earning twice the amount of educational degrees. Females in some states and in Detroit, which is kind of weird, are out earning men. Testosterone levels are dropping 17% globally. The Y chromosome is breaking up. As I mentioned, male suicides are way up. Male depression is way up. So what's happening? How is masculinity morphing? How do you feel about that, Michael?
I think we're in a period of dramatic transition, in fact. I think for years, the story we told in social science, I'm a social scientist, so here's the story we've always told. There was an increasing gap between what men were doing and what men thought it meant to be a man. That the ideology remained relatively the same, the Don Draper, John Wayne, model, but that men were doing a lot of things that were in contradiction to that. So that was the story, the growing gap between behavior and ideology. It turns out, surveys suggest that in the past 5 years or so, there's been a shift in ideology, not just the behaviors. It is quite true, I will say this to this entire audience, the men in this room are living lives that would probably be unrecognizable to your grandfathers in terms of your relationships with your partners, your relationships with children if you have them. But what's different now is that men are starting to say, that's part of being a man, being loving and kind with my kids.
So Amy, thank you, that's beautiful. What do you think about masculinity morphing?
So I mean, I think all of that's true. I'm not a social scientist, but from my own perspective and from watching the media and listening to narratives of the people around me, I agree that it is morphing. But I think we have to be really careful to also remember that the men who hold the positions of power in America, the patriarchy, that construct, is still very alive and well. We just elected who is perhaps one of the most clear harbingers of the old style of masculinity, is Donald Trump. And we still live in a world where there are more CEOs in America named John than there are women.
Right. So I'm just going to change it up a little for you, Violet. So what would you say to men, men, whose roles are slipping, who feel angry, who are scared, depressed, furious, violent maybe?
I would say tough titties. I really think it's time.
Tough titties.
It's time for change. I do. I think it's exciting. I think it's super exciting. I think it's a bit overdue. I'm glad that it happens in my generation. I'm glad that my generation can be kind of the fuel that starts driving this. I think it has a lot to do with technology. It has a lot to do with, I think the youth are just a bit fed up with the older generation. I think it's shifting rapidly and it's exciting.
Would you say tough titties to men?
I mean, in some ways I want to. In other ways, I mean, I know that in order to make change, I truly believe that we do have to work together. And I think that if you're in the majority, any move toward equality feels like oppression. And so we have to acknowledge that. Men have been in the majority for forever, for all the times. And so this is a radical shift that we're seeing. And I think, one of the reasons that the Riveter, that we welcome all genders, is because we want men to see, look, you can see women in power, you can see them growing businesses, and it's not that scary. This is a good thing. It's good for the market, it's good for all of us. So I think it has to be a mixture of pushing and also bringing people along together.
So just being a futurist, I'm going to ask Michael first. Do you think there's going to be a big pushback? We see men getting angry coming out there. This whole Me Too, time's up. Has it gone too far? A woman can accuse a man, bring him down really without a lot of evidence. So what are you thinking?
So I think this is a really exciting moment in many respects. I think that the Me Too movement did not come out of nowhere.
Right.
It has been building slowly for a very, very long time since, in my opinion, one of the bravest women of the 20th century, Anita Hill, talked about what happened to her when she worked for Clarence Thomas. Ever since then, after she was so vilified in the media, women have been talking to each other quietly, privately, and that I think seeded this field. I do hear, when I work in companies now, I hear very often men say, I don't know what to say. Should I pull a Mike Pence and never work with women, never talk to women, never have dinner alone with women? Of course not. But a lot of men feel like, tell me what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells.
So Violet, do we have to tell men what to say, Violet?
I don't think it's up to us for them to figure out what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. Again, there's a wealth of information out there. I mean, it's really up to you to seek out the information and make that decision for yourself. And if you make the wrong decision, well, that's on you. I mean, and you need to be held accountable.
So, maybe little shock sticks. So, what's the new definition of masculinity? Would you say, Amy, is it emerging? Do we want to say masculinity anymore?
So I would argue that we want to move past masculinity and femininity into just being a good human. I mean, I think the future will be more fluid, and I think that we should teach everyone and talk about it in terms of just being a good human.
That's good. I just want to give you a few factoids. I mean, about needing men. I think the thing that's changed and making men very uncomfortable is that females are telling them, well, I don't need you to support me. I don't need you for sperm. In our talent bank, there are doctors that are experimenting with skin grafts where you and your bestie could have a baby. Any sex, two-sex, similar sex, any one of the 75 genders, we can get together and have a baby. So maybe for companionship, but most of women think that their girlfriends are their best companions. So I'm going to ask you, Michael, do women need men? Sorry, I didn't put you on the spot, did I?
Yeah, I'm the wrong person to ask whether women need men.
Oh, come on. You have an opinion about everything.
Well, but I think that the idea of masculinity is not, we're living in a moment of such dramatic transition that both my vision of the future being, unrecognizable, that men are doing more housework and childcare than ever before, which is true.
They're not vacuuming.
Which is true.
Okay.
But on the other hand, as Amy says as well, we are also in a place where, men have gone from controlling 98% of all the positions of power in the world to having 88% of all the positions of power in the world. And we think, oh my God, we are so oppressed. We're the new victims. So I think the key here, is not whether or not women need men. I think is, right now, I think that the ideas of masculinity and femininity are beginning to evolve in ways that are moving less in these kind of war between the sexes idea, these two categories, moving closer to the middle. And that's, I think, what you're saying about being good humans. I think that's what you're saying about the kind of being more androgynous.
So just let me ask, Amy, do we need men?
I mean, I'm married to a man.
And he's cute, very cute.
No, but I mean, I think, I like the way that Michael's talking about it in terms of, it's not necessarily need. Look, we live in a world where we have multiple genders, two of them being men and women. And how do we learn?
And they and them and theirs and.
Yep. Yeah, but how do we learn to coexist in a way where we share power? Yeah. The idea of sharing power.
So
equality is not synonymous with sameness.
Why are we looking for equality? I think women should be looking for superiority. I don't hear men saying, I'm looking for equality.
Well, it's really interesting. I always think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was once asked how many women are enough on the Supreme Court, and she said 9. And when I first heard that, I laughed. I'm a lawyer, and I'm like, that's audacious. But the fact is, there were 9 men on the Supreme Court for hundreds of years.
Right.
And so why wouldn't there be a world where there were 9 women on the Supreme Court?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, that's good. Violet, I was going to say, like, how do we give, like, you come off as very, well, you're very pretty, but you come off as very vulnerable.
Vulnerable?
Yes. You've given...
When?
No, you're approachable. I think you're lovely. And how do we give men permission? Or again, do we have to give men permission to be vulnerable? Because I don't think men can walk into their boss's office and go, oh, you didn't give me a raise, boo-hoo. They're not comfortable with that.
Well, I think that comes from fear. I mean, I think, and it's interesting, this point of masculinity being fearless and being strong and courageous, but if you're afraid to be yourself, it's like you're not very masculine.
So,
if you're afraid to be vulnerable or emotional or human or afraid to cry, I mean, these are all human emotions. So it's interesting that you can still maintain your masculinity and still be scared at the same time.
As long as you don't show it.
As long as you don't show it. Well, I mean,
don't know.
Then it just builds up into something.
Go ahead.
The World Cup is happening right now. You watch those pictures in the stands. There are men crying their eyes out.
About men.
Well, yes, but I'm saying we know how to do that if we feel safe doing it.
Yeah, it's
Is
the
it,
safe space.
And are men in America crying? Because I think
Yes,
masculinity
I
in
agree.
America is a very particular thing.
I think European men are
I'm a baseball
more
fan.
comfortable
Men cry.
being vulnerable. So, Amy, what are the new icons of masculinity? Barack, of course.
Justin Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau.
Trudeau.
Anybody else? And who aren't?
I mean, anyone else? Violet? I think
Violet.
I would say
Yes.
RuPaul is an icon of masculinity for a lot of
Yes.
people.
Yeah,
Maybe
RuPaul's
not.
wonderful.
I don't know.
So, what are the
room.
conversations that we need to have? Should government get in the way? Should we be, fined for not promoting females? You had some statistics. How many females in corporate America CEOs?
I think there's 24 women CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies this year, which is a decline from last year. I think it was around 30.
Right.
So we're slipping.
So yeah, we're going down. So should government get involved? Who should make the, like in Iceland, it's illegal not to have gender equality, gender pay equality too.
Right. 2 things. First of all, we all know this. This is no longer a zero-sum game. The more gender equal our companies, the more profitable they are, the better return on investment, the lower their labor costs, the lower their levels of absenteeism, higher levels of productivity, greater creativity, because great minds don't all think alike. So we have enough data from Catalyst, from McKinsey, from Brain Reserve to make the case that this is a win-win, that the pie gets bigger. So that should be one area, I think, where we can make the case to C-suite people that this is in the business, there's a business case to be made for greater gender equality.
So
That's
yeah.
the first thing.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
second thing I think is absolutely inevitable that we will join the rest of the world. You may not know this. There are 4 countries in the world that do not offer paid parental leave to anyone. They are Papua New Guinea, Swaziland, Lesotho, and the United States of America. So, I had a piece yesterday in Fast Company for Father's Day. You want to know what to get Dad for Father's Day? Parental leave. Because we want it.
Beautiful.
It's not men that men don't want it. It's they can't get it, and they face terrible stereotypes from other men in the workplace when they try to take it.
So, Amy,
we need government policy.
Yes, Amy, go
I
ahead.
agree that we need government policy. I mean, we can talk about parental leave, but we should also talk about, a woman's health after she has a baby. And not having any leave is just absurd. I mean, in America today, 43% of highly trained professional women with college degrees, off-ramp at some point after they have children. That is literally the dumbest thing in the world for the markets. It doesn't make any sense for anybody. So if we were smart, we would have government policy that made sure women were staying in the workforce, that women who we hire, who we spend money training, we can actually retain. It would be better for everybody. Our margins would get bigger, our profits would get bigger.
Yeah, where women are on the boards, companies do better. Where women-led companies do better. But if you had all the power in the world and you had all the money in the world, you're making so much money and you're doing so well, I mean, are you going to package it all up and handed over to a female. So what has to change in the workplace, and how are you the model for that?
I think you're right. Like, why would you give away your power if you had
Yeah.
it? And I think one thing that needs to happen is that we need men to be allies to women. Right. If you talk about suffragettes, women in America would have never gotten the right to vote if they didn't convince the men who had the power that they deserved it. And it's very clear that in America, men still meter the oxygen in so many ways. And so we need men on our side. It involves everything from repeating a woman's idea in a meeting and saying that's a great idea.
Instead of saying, oh, it's my idea.
Exactly.
Right.
To standing up when there is sexism in the workplace, because there is sexism every single day in the workplace and we know it.
So where does gender fluidity come in? I mean, can you imagine like when you're given, HR gives you the form and check male or female and you go undecided? I mean, would you get hired? So how does gender fluidity play in the workplace, Violet?
In the workplace, well, I'm I work for myself, so I don't really have that problem. And I think a lot of gender fluid people would say something similar. I can't speak for every gender fluid person or genderqueer person, but I think being gender fluid for me is a direct reaction to the toxic masculinity. I definitely do not identify, and I've never identified, with the traditional standards of masculinity. And so this is a way for me to formulate how I feel in words. I mean, it's literally just, there's just new words for the way people have been always feeling. And I think for me, it's a direct response to all the toxic masculinity that has been shoved down my throat since I was born. And I think that's a lot of people. I mean, again, I can't speak for every queer person out there.
And you have a very big female following.
Yes.
Straight female
If you
following.
look at, the statistics or the insights, it's be like 75% female.
Wow,
Ages
incredible.
18
and a lot of, I don't want to say normal, because there is no normal, but heterosexual couples come to see you.
Yes, a lot of, well, I think they watch.
What's the fascination?
I don't know, I think things are changing. I think young people are changing, and I think seeing queer people on TV, seeing queer people in magazines, seeing queer people have platforms and YouTube, and there's so much information out there, and young people are really, on top of it, at the forefront of it.
Michael, I just want to ask you one question before you jump into that. So what role, like you have a very nice marriage, you have a very wonderful woman at home, you have a beautiful son. What role do women play in this evolving masculinity? How do you see that changing? What can women do?
Okay, I will answer that, but I have to say something about this, that this idea is that what I think that Violet shows is something that we are increasingly aware of, that gender is not something innate as much as it's a performance. And the people who are capable of moving and being fluid and performing it show the rest of us how it's performed.
So you think that's why people love to watch it?
How much of a student of femininity you have been in your life to get it so well. I mean,
it's interesting.
I think that's a wonderful point.
So
can I make a point to piggyback on that? I just realized when you were talking, right? I have in many ways had to become a student of masculinity.
Of course you did.
In starting a company. Because my company is venture-backed. Venture-backed means that we are raising money to scale at a fast rate. Like Facebook, Uber, all the examples I can give were started by men because there are very few women who start venture-backed companies. In fact, last year in the United States, women founders received 2% of all venture capital funding. My company is backed by a venture capital firm that has all male partners. And so in order to talk to that group of people, I had to go back to skills I learned as a litigator when I was always the only woman in the room and speak to them in that way.
How did you talk to them? Share.
So, the Riveter is very mission-based, right? We're trying to move women ahead in the workforce and redefine work for women. But the story that I presented in pitching, I learned it just had to be about the numbers. And that makes sense. Because
you're pitching to men.
You're pitching to men
and their
job.
If you were pitching to women, what would you have said?
I don't know. That's a hypothetical.
It's coming. It's coming.
It is.
So then I'll ask you, what role should women play in evolving masculinity? Like you have a wonderful family, I'm sure you're a delightful, perfect wife, You're raising girls, but if you're raising boys, what role can women play?
I have to preface my answer with saying that I think it's really unfair for women to have to play every role in this, to be the judge, jury, and people that, explain what's always wrong and how we can change it. Men have a big role to play in that as well. But I do think, from my perspective, what I do with my daughters is I try to frame everything as being a human, not as we teach girls to be good and kind and we teach boys to be brave. We should teach all children, regardless of gender, to be brave, kind, and good.
Right. And of course.
Bravo. And what role do women play?
What role do women play? Well, I think
I cannot ask you any women questions.
Well, no. I'm gonna punt on the question in a way. So to me, I think the message I teach in a university, and the message that my female students are constantly getting is, if you want to have a really good life, give up your feminism, give up your ambition, give up your thoughts that you can really balance work and family. Otherwise you'll end up, opting out or single at 40 and unhappy, whatever. And my feeling is that's the worst advice possible, because what makes for successful relationships, all of the relationship data suggests this. The more you are a partner, the better your relationship will be. And that this is the message I think I can sell to men, is that gender equality is not only the right thing to do, which it is, and that's the reason we should support it, full stop, but isn't it also nice to know that the more gender equal our relationships, the more housework and childcare men do, the more equal our relationships, the happier our children are, the more successful they are, the happier our partners are, the happier we are, the healthier we are, we live longer and have more sex.
Right on.
So that last one is a seller.
You bet.
Yes.
Right. So Men's Health magazine, "Housework makes her horny" was their headline. Not when she does it. So the idea here is that this is what I think this is how I think we can approach this. Gender equality is not a zero-sum game. It is in men's interest to support it. It is also true that we don't need that as a motivation, because it's right, it's fair, it's just. That should be enough.
If we promote women in the Fortune 200, more sex in the workplace?
More sex in the workplace?
Kidding.
No.
Just kidding.
No.
Okay.
But more sex at home. Or wherever else you like to
have it. So I'm going to show you an old ad. I want to talk about media, and how media is affecting this. That Axe has been so generous in sharing their, research with us. They've done such a good job, and you know them very well.
I've consulted on some of that.
Yeah. So let me show you this. Can you believe this?
Spray more, get more.
So that is an Axe ad. But, maybe you're right about people, that if they look internally, if they study, if they think, if they can evolve, because a brand, and this is a Unilever brand, big fortune company, this Axe evolved, and here's the proof of it.
Is it okay to be skinny? Pass the ball, bro. Is it okay to not like sports?
Is it okay to be a virgin? To experiment with other guys? Is it okay for guys to wear pink?
Is it okay for guys to be nervous? To have long hair? To like cuts? To take a selfie? To shave your...
To be depressed?
To be scared?
Wait, is it okay for me to be the little spoon?
Come on, man. Is it okay?
Go online to search and see for yourself.
Pretty beautiful, right? So it can happen. So looking at the impact that advertising and marketing have on the shift, so what role does media play, should it play, in the transition, in the culture? So you can see that I don't have, I have Harry's and I have Axe. I mean, I don't have that many evidences of this, but I guess it is possible. So, Amy, media.
I think media is so important. What we see growing up impacts us all along the way. And when I was growing up, when I would see ads for laundry detergent, diapers, it was always the moms. I love now that when I see those ads, and I'm like, I'm your perfect target consumer, because I have 3 children who wear diapers. I see men in those ads, and I think that's a good thing. And the thing is, not just that I'm seeing it, but that my daughters will see it growing up, that they will see that as normal, something they see every day. And at the same time, we see other ads showing women in power. and that that's a good thing. It's something that's normalized. And so on the flip side, I think that's important too.
So Violet, have you been in any commercials?
I've been in a Schwarzkopf commercial. I've been in a sleek makeup commercial.
So how does media affect our attitudes toward men?
Well, I think it used to be media affecting us, and I think now it's us affecting media.
Ah, beautiful, right.
I think it's changed dramatically. I think brands, I mean, we were at a brand conference yesterday, and they were kind of talking about this, how the consumer, well, this is what they want, and the brands are trying to keep up with what the consumers want now and change rapidly and be authentic. And I think there's swarms of teams now for every brand trying to figure out what it is that young people want, because young people have turned away, I think, and kind of done their own thing.
Michael has something to add.
Well, I was thinking about the difference between those two axe ads in a way as sort of epigrammatic. The first ad is the old way we used to sell things to men like trucks or beer, which is you don't feel masculine enough. But if you use this product, you will. This is a compensation for your not having enough masculinity. So the first axe ad, he's kind of, nerdy and, and then he sprays himself and, zillions of Victoria's Secret women wearing bikinis descend like angels. And they say, you'll get laid. I mean, as best they can, spray more, get more. But the new ad is a very different one. It's not about compensating for something you don't have. It's expressing what you do have. It's here's who you are. This is how you express yourself. I think that this is appealing more to younger consumers than those old compensatory ads, which is the way we used to sell things like pickup trucks or beer. I think that there's a new move into, sort of express yourself by using this brand as opposed to compensate for something you don't have.
And also in the socials, what they support in the socials.
Sure.
So a lot of people, like if you say, have Violet, I mean, it's really amazing. You say, have Violet in this, commercial because she's the epitome of femininity, actually. And they go, oh, come on, we're not marketing to drag queens, but actually you're marketing to people who look to Violet to see how they should be. And I think that point's missing. Did you want to add something?
Well, no matter how we're marketing, if the companies themselves aren't walking the walk,
Beautiful
does
point.
it really matter?
So talk about
Because
that.
when you asked me the question earlier of like, who's a good example of the new masculinity, there wasn't a male CEO off the top of my head that I could point to. Can anyone here?
A male CEO.
That is the model of the new masculinity. Like we pointed to politicians.
Let's think hard for a day or two. No.
So, I mean, I think it's really important that, when we talk about media, when we talk about marketing, we also hold the companies themselves accountable, because otherwise it's just bullshit.
Yeah. Amy, I love when you call bullshit Amy. It's good. So, Amy and I and the crowd, we were talking yesterday about this. Did you know that the head of every cosmetic company, every large cosmetic company, every single one, Lauder and L'Oreal, all of them are run by men. So that means that men, that's why I love how why, maybe that's why people are following you, because I guess men are setting the look for women, how they should be, how they should behave, who the models are, what the messages are, because it's men that are running them. I have an idea that I'd just like to throw out, excuse me, about genderless products. So I'm suggesting to our clients a third aisle. Well, I'm back to man, we can't have 75 aisles. So male aisle, male deodorant, female aisle, female deodorant. But what about a third aisle that has no gender? Why do we have to have male razor blades and female razor blades, male, lotions and female lotions? So this third aisle, I think, could be the future. So what do you think, Violet? Third aisle.
I don't know if it's a physical aisle.
Well,
there's definitely companies already doing kind of really basic branding of
Mr.
products.
Smith, small company is.
Yeah, I mean, I see ads on Facebook or Instagram all the time for really simply packaged items that are genderless.
Do you have an idea?
Well, I think this is interesting, and as the parent of 3 children, you will. But if you haven't experienced this yet, I have a 19-year-old son who is just finished his first year of college. So I grew up, he grew up with going to toy stores, and there was always two aisles. There was one which was Barbie Land and glitter, and then there was a big space in the middle, and then there was like action heroes, those are dolls for boys, and sports stuff. And so what you saw in the past, decades is there are plenty of girls going over to the boys' side.
Yeah.
But heaven help that boy who goes over to the girls' side.
Yes.
Now, so what I'm...
Well, tell them what you played with. No, I'm going to come back to you one second.
Wait, let me
Tell them
finish
what you
this.
played with. What'd you play with growing up?
My sister's Barbies.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
So this is the thing. You can't just say, well, we should have more genderless products. What you have to focus on is what kinds of peer pressure boys are under from other boys, the level of gender policing that boys experience from other boys. Some of the men in this room are old enough to remember having someone sneak up behind you in middle school and say, look at your fingernails. You remember this was okay? This was like beat 'em up. How you walk, how you talk, you bet.
That was the thing.
That's right.
Yes?
So
Yes,
how
you've
you
never
walk,
heard
how you talk, how you move, how you look at your goddamn fingernails, all of these are relentlessly policed by other boys. So if we want to break down some of these stereotypes, that's the place that's the pivot, that's the fulcrum of all of this sexism, is the fear that boys have that other boys are policing them and will say, that's so gay.
So I think we can do that. I mean, I think, Violet's generation, Violet's younger than me, I'll admit.
Even the generation below me, I mean, I'm 26.
And that's why you're the future.
And I think that's so important, but what the hell about my generation? Right? Women in my generation, we are still getting left behind. We aren't getting the promotions. Yeah. We're 15% less likely to get a promotion than a man. We're all leaving the workforce because when we have children, the maternal bias is shocking in this country. So what do we do about this generation, because we don't deserve to be left behind? We're smart.
So those left behinds in men that can't evolve, and the left behinds in women. Somebody was complaining to me, one of our clients, going, I can't believe it. I mean, I'm always on his case. You want me to promote women, but we need a 90-hour work week here. We need what woman can work 90 hours with with children?
And what man would want to do that?
But they do it. Tell the lawyer's story. Right. No, Michael's going to tell the lawyer's story.
Sure. Some years ago, I had this big argument with the Harvard Business Review about parental leave, and because companies weren't offering it to men weren't taking it even in the companies that were offering it. So I said, let me go ask the men. So they said men don't want it. I said, maybe that's not true. So I talked to a whole bunch of men in different companies whose wives had recently had babies, and they all said, I didn't take it because of what men said. But I have to tell you this one story. I went to talk to a guy who was an associate at a very large corporate firm in New York City, about 450 lawyers. He goes into the senior managing partner's office to say, and says, we have parental leave. My wife's about to have a baby. I'm so excited. I'm going to take parental leave. And the senior managing partner looks at him and leans over his desk in that kind of stern senior managing partner way, and he imitates this for me, and he says, now you listen here, finger pointing down on the desk. Now you listen here. I am 64 years old, and I have 3 grown children, and I cannot tell you sitting here today what their birthdays are. You're going to have to make some sacrifices.
And you know what? Maybe people aren't expressing it so clear. And that guy left the firm, right?
He left the firm.
He said that's the day he knew he was leaving.
But the thing that's key to me now is thinking, I want to say to that senior managing partner, you hired this guy because you thought he was talented. Look at the talent you're losing.
Right. Exactly. And that's true with women too.
That's the business case.
I just want to get to, because people, did you want to say something? I just want to get to these takeaways because, I just want you to leave with oh my God, it's hopeless, what should I do? I'll just go back to being who I am. So this slide is not going forward. Oh, I wanted to show you this. Yeah, Citibank. This is a beautiful one. That's it. Now, Citibank, of all places, that's a company that's getting it. So kind of beautiful. So can we move?
I'd like to see one ad,
forward.
one futurist ad that's not just about fathers, but about men in relationships to other people in the workplace, and because we kind of get all sappy about fathers.
Yeah.
I do too.
So, as a takeaway, oh, wait, no, I don't know what happened to that slide.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm going to go back one. Hang on. Let me go back one. As a takeaway, when you're hearing somebody say something about, you know, women won't like this or nobody wants them in the boardroom, Michael, quickly, what would a man should say? What should a man say?
About that? I'm not down with that at all. And the reality is, most of us aren't. Most men,
Good to know.
when
Good
they
to
say,
hear.
tell me what to say, I don't know what to say, they're saying, I mean, this is the truth. Most men don't want to be jerks. Yeah. This is a good starting place.
Well, we have to tell them they're jerks first, right?
Mm-hmm. They don't want to be.
Like, T-shirt, don't be a jerk. Okay.
I mean, I agree, and I think, you know, if I know it can be scary and brave to speak up in a boardroom when someone says something sexist, but think about the 80 women that just stood up and confronted Harvey Weinstein with horrible stories. Yeah. So you can be brave enough to say something in a corporate boardroom.
Oh.
Whoop.
Up.
Oh, there it is.
There they are. Go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Amy.
I'm finished.
Oh, you're done. Okay. So one of the takeaways is co-create. Get on there with a brand and make sure that you are saying through this brand, you know, let's talk about the new man, the new masculinity. Another one, support the left behinds. We call them the left behinds, a helpline maybe for men, because as you said, they don't know what to do. They don't want to be a jerk, but they have nobody to talk to. And the last one I wanted to say is, this is a fact, change or die. So as you're walking out of here, if you have questions, you want to ask anything, if you tweet me at Faith Popcorn, I will answer the questions, or any one of my beautiful panelists. And may I thank you, Violet and Amy and Michael. Didn't they do a wonderful job? Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Pick up the scene for you.
Thank you so much for that insightful session. So, if you fancy a quick break, why not head down to the basement to our Work and Awards Hub. You'll see the unique opportunity to view all of this year's entries, and there are people down there who will help guide you through the work. We also have a lot of content still running out on the terrace. There's a map on your apps if you want to find out how to get there. We will be back at 2 o'clock on the dot for our penultimate session of the day. We will see you shortly.